All right, here we go with the Q&A portion of episode 1143 Rewind. And I'm actually going to do something a little off the board today, which is I'm going to answer a comment, or at least address a comment, from episode 511. Now we've got Pedro Pedscro. He explained why he calls himself that. It's from when he got an F in college. It's really good. You should look at the comment from, let me see, his episode 507, where he talks about how he got his. This may be the only time I've ever realized on my own where somebody got their name from, unless it's something obvious like Luke Skywalker or something like that. He actually got his name from getting an F in college. That is hilarious. Anyway, this is his comment from 511. Sengoku and Garp were not forced to resign, they chose to retire. However, their reputation as symbols of justice and their inside knowledge of the Navy made it so they were not allowed to completely leave the Navy. So Sengoku and Garp took on new positions in the Navy which were not as intense and prestigious. Garp became a training instructor, and Sengoku became an inspector general. I'm sure other people told me this, like that they didn't, they weren't forced to quit. They were. Why do I have the headphones on? It's gonna be a while. I'm sure other people have told me that they weren't forced into retirement, that they retired of their own accord. But, and I'm sure they may have told me this other stuff. But recently, I was reminded he was a training instructor. I don't remember ever knowing that he was a training instructor. And then I don't remember ever knowing that Sengoku was inspector general. What does that actually mean? I'm going to look up what the American military considers an inspector general, or I guess probably a better example would be Japanese military. But an inspector general is an independent, law-established unit that aims to improve efficiency and detect fraud, waste, and abuse within the government programs and operations. I assume it's the same for the military. So basically, quality control is what we're talking about. You get a paycheck, you probably help out, you give advice where you can, and hey, we should probably do this, and consultant. I don't remember knowing that these guys had these jobs, and I don't remember knowing that they chose to retire. But you gotta wonder, was there pressure? There was a lot of blunders during Marineford, and they've generally been getting their asses kicked since the series started. I don't think the Navy's had a big win. Any scary pirate who's been taken out has not been taken out by the Navy, as far as I can remember. I mean, I guess the Navy can take credit for taking out Whitebeard. You could say that, but they also lost a lot. The Navy got their asses kicked there. I don't know that. Like, what would we say? Like, if you were doing an independent analysis, who do you think came out ahead? It feels like Blackbeard came out ahead. Shanks maybe got a little more power. Losing one emperor may be worse than losing none because they kind of in some ways it depends on the inter relationships. They keep each other in check, so you need to take them all out at once, or leave them alone. Whitebeard kind of kept Kato in check because they didn't like each other. Whitebeard and Shanks may not have hated each other, but they still kind of put each other in check a little bit. Then you had Big Mom. Now, Kato and Big Mom were comfortable enough with each other, they eventually came to an allyship, even though they originally started fighting. So you can see them on one side. So with Whitebeard's death, if Kato and Big Mom had been allowed to fully integrate their allyship, had been given more time for that to happen, they could have maybe rolled over and taken the rest of the world, the pirates and the Navy. So I don't think they came out ahead. So the point being, I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole, but the point being, like, he oversaw, Birdhead oversaw an operation which they lost, and they took losses, and the world position got worse, not better. So you can see him being blamed, and in the Navy, in the Japanese Navy, you can see officers being pushed aside when something like that happens. When they're like, whoever, what was his name? The admiral or general, I can't remember which one he was. I think he was admiral, who was in charge of Pearl Harbor. Was it Yamamoto? I can't remember, but it was he was their best military mind. He didn't get pushed aside. He was eventually assassinated. The Japanese didn't find out after the war that's what that was, but it was assassination. And it helped the Americans to get him killed. He wasn't pushed aside, but if somebody was like not as good of a military leader and they oversaw something as devastating as Pearl Harbor, you would think they would be like, your ass going to be guarding Alaska or something, or whatever their closest property to Russia was. something low, important but of low importance. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting. I also think it's interesting that they weren't completely allowed to leave the Navy. You know too much. Symbols, the PR, the Navy does like to do the PR. The government likes PR. So I can see that. But I think more importantly, you know too much. So it's interesting. What do they know? Garp's now dead. What does Birdhead know that they're worried about? Probably quite a bit, right? So, like, you don't want him just out there hanging out at a bar, drinking and talking, right? You kind of want him to have some kind of oversight, have other Navy people around in case somebody wants to kidnap and, suck the information out of his brain. That's something else that Blackbeard might be involved in. Is he might be trying to impersonate certain people like an elder to get access to people that he can question. Possibly. Like, we don't know how much he knows. But, yeah, so somebody like Birdhead could be very important to question, and so you kind of want to keep some oversight to him. I think it's very interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. That's why I wanted to bring it up here. Because this is still relevant now, 640 episodes later. This is more relevant now than it was even when this episode came out, right? So I think it's interesting that they weren't allowed to completely leave the Navy. Like, I think this is like the mob, the Yakuza. Once you get in, you can't get out. Once you achieve a certain rank. Now, the American military, obviously, you can retire anytime you want to. Now, there are certain conditions. Like, Dad had conditions when he retired. He retired early. No, he had done his 20 years. But he had certain conditions where for another 20 years, they could call him back into active service against his will. Now, he said because of his age and because of what he did, like he was a fire control technician, like he could understand, like, he could calculate how you send this payload from here over to there, but it's a ballistic, he wasn't like a missile calculation guy. He was ballistics, he was bullets, shells. However big the shell is, it's still a bullet, right? He was bullet ballistics, right? So we don't really have that anymore. We do have artillery, and we do have the 8-inch guns. But a lot of times it's just 5-inch guns now, and mostly we're using missiles and drones. So because of that, his skill set wasn't really something they needed. He could learn a new skill because he was very intelligent, and they thought highly of him in the Navy. He invented a couple things that helped him, right? But he used to say that the enemy would have to be at the Mississippi River for them to call him up. But they could. For 20 years from, he retired in 1977, 78, somewhere around there. So until 1998, they could have called him back into service. But the situation would have to be dire, right? It would have to be bad. But they can. In the American military, they can call you back. It's part of your contract. Maybe not for somebody who does only 4 or 6 years. But when you achieve a certain rank and you're in for a certain amount of time, that becomes vested, and they have the ability to call you back, right? So that's kind of like this, but like, he didn't have military secrets, and I bet like if you have somebody who has really high security clearance, like a level 5 security clearance or something like that, and secrets, and you retire, they still keep track of you. They're still going to follow you around and listen in conversations. They probably debrief you once a year or something. Hey, anything happen? Want to come in? We just want to check in. What are you doing now? You losing a bunch of money in Vegas? Maybe you have to sell some secret. Like they probably keep eyes on you, right? Like, I don't know for sure, but they keep tabs. This is the way of keeping tabs. So I just think it's really interesting. So I just wanted to address that real quick. Yeah, Let's get to the actual current comments. By the way, that's the guy, Pedro Pasca, whatever, is apparently started around 500 and is apparently going to work his way all the way up, which should be a fun exercise. I've done that before with people. I'll start episode 1 if it's a show. There's certain shows that are like that. Buffy, I start with season 2, but like Tyler Alexander, I ran into his reactions when he was almost finished with season 3 of Buffy. I was like, oh, yeah, I started like in season 2, boom, 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 and over the course of a couple weeks, I'd seen them all, right? Like binging reactions is the best thing ever. I hate when you're current with a reactor. I'm sure you feel the same way. you're current with the reactor, then it's like, well, now we gotta wait. Now our watch begins. You know, damn it. Much rather binge. So it's always a delight to find a new reactor and they've finished a show you like. Oh yeah, now it's on my timetable, not yours. All right, this is the one comment for the actual episode 1142. This HIG. What I love about Vegapunk having a dead man switch in the form of his message is that all this is self-inflicted on the part of the five elders. Yes, I love the tragedy of self-inflicted abuse, right? All they had to do was sit on their fat insect asses. People, by the way, have said that, like, maybe it's a comment in the other video, but his fruit power could be just skeletal, spider, right? Like, hadn't really thought about it. We haven't seen any insect fruits, right? I know, nerd, you effing nerd. Spiders aren't insects. Shut the hell up. Frankenstein was the doctor, not the monster. And by the way, he wasn't a doctor. He actually wasn't a doctor. So stop calling him Dr. Frankenstein, nerd. I know, man. I don't care. It's if you got more than four legs, you're a goddamn insect, man. I did go to college, but pretend I didn't go to college. I'm not here for that college double talk, man. Arachnids this, arachnid my ass. They're insects. Insect isn't even a proper word, is it? No, bug. Bug is the one that's not there. So if I said bug, it'd be fine. So to be technically accurate, nerd, I will say bug, right? Because bug is just a generic. It doesn't mean anything. It's just, it's probably a pejorative to insects. You're like, damn, that some bitch just call us a bug? You piece of shit. Because it's not an actual word, right? So bug can cover it all. All the disgusting little things with more than four legs, the creepy, crawly, glistening skin. Ugh, can't stand them. So I don't think we've seen a bug fruit before, have we? Because we've seen plenty of giraffes. We've seen dinosaurs, dragons, apes, elephants, probably a horse. I don't remember specifically, but I'm sure there's a horse in there somewhere. Probably a zebra. I think I vaguely remember a zebra. I don't know if we've seen any birds. Probably. Birds and dinosaurs are kind of, hand in hand. What are they actually? A lot of them could just be birds. They feel like dinosaurs because they have the beaks and, the leathery skin and shit. I don't know. But we're not seeing like a robin out there. I think, was it an ostrich? What was that chick in the really scary ice chick? Maybe she just had ice powers. But she also seemed like an ostrich. She was scary. She's the one that got murked in the previous lab. Whatever the hell that storyline was called. Not Thriller Bark. Whatever it was Fire and Ice Island, right? Whatever that arc was called. But that chick, I think she was an ostrich or something. But I don't think we've seen anything bug related that I can remember. Like, no, there's no centipedes. There's no flies or bees. A bee, the bee fruit would be kind of scary. And there's no wasps. We haven't seen any wasps. And we haven't seen any spiders. So it could be a spider fruit, but we haven't seen any bug fruits yet. So it's never really crossed my mind. I've never really thought about it. Because we haven't seen it. Now, this could be seen. So for me, I just thought it was some other kind of deformation, I have to admit. I didn't think it was like a fruit power where you turn into a spider. Because, nothing else is spider. It's just it's the 8 legs, right? The 8 legs with the sharp ends. Because it's 8 legs, it feels like a spider, but like it really is just insectal type legs with sharp ends. That could be anything. That could even be a crab, right? So maybe he's like, he took a crab fruit, but again, we're not seeing anything else. We're not seeing the pinchers. We're not seeing the faces. He doesn't seem to have more than 2 eyes, does he? Matter of fact, he's got horns. So I don't know that this is a fruit. I think it's some other kind of deformation. Like like he's deformed in some way or something else. Maybe even technical, like, technological. I don't know. I mean, I just don't know that we have enough information yet to judge. But I'm not convinced it's a spider fruit, is what I'm saying. They wanted to snuff out Vegapunk to prevent his knowledge from getting out. But it turns out that the very action of killing him will lead to the knowledge coming out. You gotta love irony. Alanis Morissette. This is irony. You do the thing to stop the thing and it causes a thing. That's irony, man. Like that's all you have to do. Rain in the wedding day. I'm not gonna get there. I'm not gonna go there. It's not irony, though, is what I'm saying. Dumbass. This is. It is beautiful irony. So, yes, isn't that ironic? Yes, it is. And I love every second of it. Alright, going to the rewind video. We have a few comments here. Quite a few, actually. Power of Death. Odo always intended characters to look exaggerated. You don't say. Vegapunk, like I don't actually like it that much, to be honest with you. The tongue hanging out it disturbed me every episode. I didn't talk about it. I hate it so much. I hate they can talk with that tongue just hanging out. It'd be dry, and your tongue, like your tongue is where you taste things, so you'd be constantly tasting bugs and everything else. Like just walking down the hall, you're tasting dust and bugs. You're tasting your shirt. Like. If you're moving, if you're running, it's gonna be flapping all over the place. A big, like a soggy snake just flying. I mean, it's disgusting. Nobody can live like that, man. Nobody's gonna have the massive tongue sticking out of their mouth. And they do that a lot in this show. So that sucks. The ridiculous ass hair. The dude with the big pointy head. It's just, I don't like it. It's body horror, is what it is. But, it's the aesthetic of the show, so you go with it. Whatever, right? Like, you just kind of, like, you notice it and you move on, like I do with Vegapunk. I'm kind of glad he's dead, so I don't have to look at that stupid tongue anymore. It was very disturbing. Their personalities and their traits from the very start of the story. Yeah, absolutely. The appearances, personalities, and traits from the very start of the story have always been exaggerated. You're 100% right about that. As for varieties of races, there are a lot of theories about them. I have a theory personally, but there are some small spoilers to my theory, so I'll probably share it later. Please remember to do so. In fact, if you want to reply to this comment right now, the one you left 5 days ago, I won't return to this thread unless somebody leaves a new comment, and I'll remember not to look at your comment, so I won't see the spoiler. And you can even do the thing Hunter Stone is really good about, that spoiler, 4 spaces and then comment, right? And usually it's like you have to hit the show more. Go ahead and put it in here so we don't forget. And then, of course, if you don't remember to remind me, I won't notice it later. So you have to remember either way. I don't know. Put a calendar alert. Something. Because I want to remember. I want to know what your theory is. I'm very curious. I love theories, especially wrong theories. Because, the beauty of a wrong theory is it tells you what the audience was anticipating at the time. And even if the show goes a completely different direction, it's a lot of fun to see what people thought was going to happen. And then they can see what the show actually did. It's okay, well, the show wanted you to think this, and they actually did that. I love that. I love wrong theories. Right theories can be interesting, too. But, not as informative, I think, as wrong theories. Because if the audience is thinking exactly what the show's going to do, you don't learn anything, I don't think. This is Marakoyo. We see more proof that Saturn ate a devil fruit. We don't know which one, though, since it hasn't been mentioned. Usually, they say what it is immediately. Yeah, that's true. We see 3 transformations which align with the Zonin-type fruit, a normal base form, a half form, which we saw when he arrived, and now a fully transformed form. Yeah, this must be the comment I was thinking about. I'd read it 5 days ago, but then, couldn't remember it verbatim now. Since it was revealed that Luffy ate a Zoan-type fruit as well, it always made me wonder what would happen if Luffy ate Chopper's Rumble Balls. Luffy is not going to eat Chopper's balls, man. What are you talking about? Rumble Balls. Okay. For Chopper, it gives him a bunch of new transformations beyond the base 3 every Zonin gets. And Chopper also gets his monster form. So I wonder what Luffy would look like in a monster form. Or any other Zoan user. Maybe Kato or Marco would be cool. Which reminds me, how come Chopper didn't give Rumble Balls to all of the Zoan types during the Wano raid? cheapskate. Yeah, maybe it takes him a long time to make them. Though we do see Beepo, the polar bear on Law's crew, eat one, and it transforms him into a shalong, which would usually require a full moon, but he doesn't have a devil fruit. Interesting. Okay, well, my theory, just off the top of my head, is Chopper's balls are catered to animals. He is an animal. Chopper is a reindeer that got turned into a human. So his ball is intended for animals that get turned into humans. Like, because that's different than a human becomes another animal. The one difference between Chopper and almost everybody else we've ever seen, I think with just a couple of exceptions, like Beepo, for instance, Beepo is a bear, right? He's a polar bear who's sentient. He's not a fruit user who becomes a polar bear. So Beepo's an animal. So he can take the fruit power and transform. He can take the ball, and transform, right? So I think if Chopper gives any animal the one of these balls, they will transform into something. If they have a fruit power, they'll transform even more, right? But if they don't have a fruit power, like you could probably give that to what's that stupid ass duck that Vivi hangs out with, the one with the clothes. Give it to him and he becomes a dinosaur or something, right? Or no, probably just becomes a shalong, right? Because he doesn't have a fruit power. There's a couple animals that have fruit powers. I can't remember. Anyway, so I think it affects the animal, not the fruit power, right? So I don't think and I think this would explain. I think the author knows this and just has never bothered to say it because it's very consistent. He's never given a ball to a human with the fruit power and had that work on them, right? That's never happened. We've only seen it work on him, and we've seen it work on another animal, Beepo. So that's my working theory. It could be very well easily be wrong. Maybe he is just a cheapskate. But that's what I think's happening there. And as far as Saturn goes, it is interesting that they haven't mentioned what his power is immediately, and that you talk about the transformations and different kinds of transformations and stuff. That would be very interesting to see what some other people. So you take somebody we're very familiar with, like Marco, for instance, and what can they do in a different form? That'd be really cool, right? But what we don't know, since we haven't been with Marco for his whole journey, is maybe what we're seeing now is his final form, and he had other forms before that were not as strong. So we're already seeing his strongest form, possibly. I don't know. It's possible. But it's a very interesting conversation. I'm interested in all this shit. Luffy has a massive resistance to poison. I'm glad you reminded me of this, Mata Koya, because this has been established, and it's something that I kind of knew. Maybe in the back of my head somewhere. I was aware of this information at some point in my life. Given everything he's been through, so it's not surprising that Saturn's poison doesn't affect him. But here's my question. Is it poison? Or is it acid? Now, is Luffy also immune to acid? Because I think some of the shit that was happening in Imperial Down was acid. Poisons and acids are kind of similar. They're liquids, they hurt people, they destroy things. But acid can affect non-organic substances, and poisons only affect organic substances, right? And we've been seeing Saturn touch things that are not organic and have those things evaporate. I think it's acid. I don't think it's poison. What I don't know is Luffy immune to acid. It's possible he is, because I think maybe some of the shit he got hit with in Imperial Down was acid. I can't remember. I think we know it was some of it was poison. And I think maybe it could be a translation issue as well, because I think they were using poison and acid interchangeably a couple times in Imperial Down. Not entirely sure. But to me, Saturn's substance reads as acid, especially since, the alien from the Aliens franchise bleeds acid. Apparently something its skin is immune to. It'd be weird having that, There are animals that have like toxic substances inside their bodies, like snakes have it, right? But I don't think. Yeah, snakes are immune to their own poison because some of it would dribble out of their fangs into their mouth at some point, right? So I don't know. You'd have to wonder what kind of substance is actually immune to acid. But there are different kinds of acid. Some acid, for instance, won't burn plastic, but it'll burn metal, or vice versa. It won't burn metal, but it'll burn plastic, right? The average giant reaches about a height of 65 feet tall, and ancient giants reach a height of 200 feet tall. This is really good. The hard numbers help me visualize things. The only thing better than that is when you see the comparison chart, right? I've seen that one time where they talk about the various characters in One Piece, and it can only be so much of a scale because some of the things are so big, and then our guys are only like, Luffy, for instance, isn't even quite 6 feet, right? Oars from Thriller Bark and Little Oars Jr. from Marineford were the ancient giants. They were 200 feet. Or about the height of three giants stacked on top of each other. That would be very uncomfortable. Three of them stacked on top of each other, they got a massive giant cloak around them, and they're trying to pass themselves as oars. I'm oars, let me in the club. The reason the Marines have some very large ships is because of the need to carry a few giants sometimes, as the Marines have a few giants in their ranks. That's true, but I think in that diagram we saw the massive ship up front was the actual giant pirate ship, right? Because when we saw that diagram that I was talking about in the last episode, there's a bunch of regular sized ships. At the very top of the island was a massive ship. That was the ship the Giants just came in on. That was not a Marine ship. Is that correct? I believe that's correct. Because they came in on a really huge ship. But yeah, we have seen a couple Navy ships that are really large. I just assumed they were capital battleships or something. But it's entirely possible they're just for transporting giants. Because they need a lot of room, right? The shortest giant in One Piece is Morley with the Revolutionaries. Yeah, he's that big dude. He is 41 feet and 1 inch tall. And Big Mom is 28 feet and 10 inches tall. So quite short compared to these guys. But compared to Luffy being just 5'9", she is massive. Very true. Yeah, it's interesting. So they have to be different races. But another thing that's interesting about this is the sizes are getting smaller. Like the massive giants are gone. I wonder if that has anything to do with the Void Century or not, right? Because we used to have 200 feet tall giants. Now our tallest giants are what would you say, around 65 feet tall. So over half their height has been evolutionarily bred out of them. Kind of like, or is it something like with the difference between a tiger and a house cat? Tigers didn't evolve down into the size of house cats. They branched at some point. The evolutionary lines branched away. So either giants have evolved to become smaller and smaller, or they branched and the branch that are 200 feet tall all died out. And the branch that's 65 tall was able to survive in this world. Makes sense, because when you're 200 feet tall, there's not enough resources to consume. You can't eat enough to survive. There's just not enough food in this world for that, right? So, I think just for that fact alone, the dinosaurs that were eating massive trees, the vegetation was really large back then. They couldn't survive now. There's not enough to eat, right? Couple more from Made Koyo. These arrows seem to be as tall as trees, since the arrow seems to be half his height. And trees came up to half its height. That's pretty observant. I didn't notice that. Imagine being shot with an entire tree trunk with a massive iron spike on the end. Well, if it happened, it'd be over very fast, wouldn't it? Like, you basically got to be fighting the other giants, because there's no utility for that. Like, they would probably be better off using really small, the shuriken or whatever they're called. That kind of, you have the throwing stars, but they also have like the little needles that are like small pencils. Those would be better used for taking out human beings. Because even those would be the size of a telephone pole, maybe. Or maybe a street sign pole. Maybe the poles that hold up the street lights, right? That size. So probably something like this. That big. That's enough to take out a human. A tree, something with the diameter of an old oak tree is just overkill. It's a waste of an arrow. Unless you're taking out sea beasts or ships or another giant. And we know giants fight each other. One of the things I don't like is how little time Frankie gets with Vegapunk. I agree. Frankie spent 2 years on Vegapunk's hometown in his first lab. I want a Frankie tech boost. Well, it would have been interesting just for Vegapunk to just appreciate what Frankie had done. We get no comment on it. Like Frankie had made an entire ship, what he had done to his own body. I don't know how impressed he would be. But also, I think the things that like Vegapunk could get most excited about would be cutting edge technology. I don't think anything Frankie did was cutting edge. I think it was more like if you are an expert in One Piece and somebody has a theory you've never thought of that kind of ties everything together and doesn't contradict anything you know about One Piece. I'm talking about you are an expert at One Piece, and some of you seem to be, right? And I come up with a theory that you've never thought about that seems to tie everything together, you're going to be impressed. If I come up with something that most people realize on a first watch, so an ordinary thing like the snails are telepathic. I don't think we're ever told that the snails are telepathic, or maybe even empathic. I don't think we're ever officially told that. Let's say we were, just for the sake of argument. And then I come up with that theory, and it makes sense that it's true, but like, is that really something that's going to excite you? You'll be like, yeah, I know. I'm glad you figured it out. Like, I guess not everybody figured it out. Maybe there's 10% of people who wouldn't figure it out and they can't understand what's going on. Most people are going to figure that out. So, to Vegapunk, Frankie making the ship, the shit he put into the ship with the cola power, and Frankie making modifications to himself, maybe bionic eyes and all this other shit he's got, would be like me coming up with a theory that the snails are telepathic. Like, it's not wrong. It's a pretty, maybe an inspired observation, maybe not. Like, but it's like, it's not nothing. It's not impressive, but it's not nothing. So it's just kind of in that meh area, right? You're in that meh range where, okay, you're better than some people, but I don't really give a shit because I'm an expert, right? Go impress people who are just started watching One Piece. It's probably something like that, right? Like, it's something along the lines of, he would be patient and tolerant and maybe give some faint praise to Frankie, but I don't think Frankie is the innovator who would excite Vegapunk. I know that's not exactly what you're saying. You're saying you would like to see Vegapunk talk to Frankie about his hometown and be like, oh, you went to my hometown. What do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And what was that like? And what were your formative years when you were a teenager? What was that like, right? That's more what you're talking about. But the conversation I'd be interested in, what would you actually think of the things Frankie has created? And I think he wouldn't be that impressed. So it'd probably be kind of a letdown, which is probably why the author didn't have that conversation. I do agree. I wish that Vegapunk had told Frankie something about himself. Maybe those would be future flashbacks, because we saw some Vegapunk flashbacks through the eyes of other people. We haven't seen Vegapunk flashbacks. Maybe we will this arc, or in some future arc. What were his formative years like? We probably don't need it, unless he knows something way back that would be interesting to tell us. Maybe we'll get it this episode, because he's doing a message. Maybe part of the message will be the flashback to parts of his life. It depends on what he talks about. So, yeah, I don't know. It would have been interesting, though, to have that conversation. This is Power of Death. Frankie had 3 wanted posters. First was pre-time skip Frankie, who looks nothing like him now. Boy, that's the truth. I bet it's some culture shock to go back and rewatch Water 7 and like, god damn, that's what Frankie looked like? I bet his 2 women wouldn't even recognize him anymore. His second poster is that giant robot Frankie was using, right? His third poster is just the ship of the Thousand Sunny. I didn't even notice that. He wasn't noticed by the Giants, and I think Oda is trying to remind us that this is intentional. Maybe he got something planned for Frankie to not be noticed in the future. Kind of like Usopp wasn't noticed in Dressrosa because of Soj King. Right. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. There was also that thing with Sanji, right, where he had a weird wanted poster for a while. That turned out to be comic relief. This, I think most likely it'll probably be like a comedic thing. I bet also Giants, when you have the large eyes, you're going to see outer shape. Your silhouette probably matters more than the fine details of the face and the eye color and stuff like that. They probably look for your silhouette. Usopp has a distinctive silhouette. Matt Groening once said, famously, iconic cartoon characters can be recognized from their silhouette. If you can't recognize a cartoon character from a silhouette, it's not iconic. So you look, you can see the silhouette of Bart Simpson. You know exactly who that is. You know who Homer is. You know who Mr. Burns is. You know who Mickey Mouse is. You know, all these cartoon characters, you know them from their silhouette. And same with the One Piece characters. I can't think of a single One Piece character except maybe some of the women who have similar body types who you would not recognize from their silhouette. Chopper, Zoro, Luffy, Frankie. You would recognize them all. Usopp, you'd recognize all of them from their silhouettes for sure. I'm kind of mentally looking at silhouettes in my head right now. Yeah, so that's probably what giants do. So somebody like Frankie, you know, they're going to have a rough time recognizing him because his silhouette has also changed, right? All right, back to Mada Koyo. It's also important to note Buggy mentioned that his biggest customers, pun intended, costumers. Ooh, I see. His biggest costumers, pun intended, were the giants for the marine hunting bounty thing. Is it costumers or customers, is he saying? I'm not sure. But they all quit recently. Perhaps they were all up to something, or maybe it was just for this. He goes, Probably this, I would think. I think that was foreshadowing for this, right? HIG. I don't know if these are the same giants that were there at O'Hara pulling the books. Different giants. Dory and Brogy were fighting on Little Garden for 100 years, so it wasn't them, that's true. O'Hara was 22 years ago. We do know that the giants that pulled the books, though. If you look at that scene carefully, you can see that the giants at O'Hara were Hajundan's crew, the new giant pirates. Hajundan is a giant that was in Dressrosa, fought in the Colosseum, and is now part of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. Yeah, that's true. That does make sense. I remember him. The rest of the crew, not present in Dressrosa, were introduced in the Straw Hat Grand Fleet cover story, right? I think that was the cover story I couldn't get through. There was one of these cover stories that was kind of like touching base on all the different members of his fleet. And there wasn't anything to it. It was just a bunch of basically, hey, these people are part of this fleet. And these people are part of this fleet. They weren't doing anything. It didn't interest me, so I stopped watching that about halfway through. And finally, Power of Death. I have a dog. Her breed is a Pomsky. Okay, well, that explains that. I had never heard of Pomsky as a breed. It's a mix of Husky and Pomeranian. Oh, okay. I was going to say something, but I don't want to be insulting to your dog. I don't know why you would breed a Husky and a Pomeranian together. But I haven't seen this breed. Maybe it's gorgeous. I don't know. I'm going to stop talking before I offend somebody. I don't know. You just wonder sometimes why they breed some of these things together. Like a Chihuahua and a Labrador Retriever. Why? Why would you do that? You know, these kind of things. Vice Admiral Pomsky, Vice Admiral Pomsky is probably named after that dog breed. 100%. I don't know. Maybe it's a really big breed over in Japan. I've never heard of it. I've never even heard of it. I guess I've heard of a Pomeranian. They're like a lap dog, right? Like they're small. They have the little curly hair and stuff, right? That's what I think a Pomeranian is. A lot of dog themes in the Navy, yeah. Apparently, Lava Bitch translates in English to red dog. Huh. I never knew that. Interesting. Well, that's the Q&A. I'm going to go ahead and watch the episode, then I'll be back. Alrighty, here we go with the rewind. Let's start off with the title, Vegapunk's Secret Plan, a tense worldwide broadcast. They should have saved that title for some future episode, because that is not what happened here. So, but at least it's not a spoiler, because they're lying straight out of their ass. I mean, yeah, it kind of fits, but not really. The actual broadcast hasn't happened yet. They're stalling. So, no, I don't buy it. I don't think I noticed that his name is at the bottom of this, in the middle. Stella. It looks like Stella anyway. Am I wrong? By the way, there was a problem with this recording. Like I think I told you during the reaction that there was weird captions going on. It was like they were doing the theme song on captions for like the first half of the video. You'll see. You'll see as we go through here. There'll be some weird shit at the top. It's at the top though. So I just kind of ignored it and focused on the bottom. Yeah, it looks like this says Stella. I could be wrong because, you see Tell in the middle, and I'm talking about the middle here, right? See where it says Tell? That could be an S to the left and an A to the right. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just seeing things, but it looks like it says Stella. And there's not much. They're just setting up the stalling, so there's not much to say here. It's just I don't buy it. I don't think it's a good idea. They should have done something else, but whatever. The end of the day, we'll get there. We always get our answers. Somebody was saying that in the comments today. We always get answers. Yeah, I've never doubted that. Matter of fact, let me read this specifically. What it was. Okay, and this is from episode 513. Somebody's working their way through my reactions, right? As a One Piece fan, one must be, and that was all cast, one must be patient and trust Enodo. Almost always there will be great payoffs eventually, though sometimes it takes a long time. But when it does pay off, it is always chef's kiss. I agree. I do trust him. But I think it's better when you binge. Like, see, this would not be annoying if we were binging. Because I just go next and next and next, and then I would get to the point where they actually do the broadcast, and it'd be fine. We're going to week. And, I just think they could have done this better. Like, like I said, either you just somehow, the countdown idea is probably the best way to do it, but somehow just show things starting to turn on. That's another way you could delay. Show computers starting to boot up, and you wonder what it is. Every now and then they go back to that. The things are lighting up, monitors are turning on. You can see his image, processing it. You could have the loading screen or something. You can stall that way. But I think, what the author must have had in mind, he wants you to know what's coming so you can anticipate it when it happens. And theorize, and give you plenty of time to theorize, what exactly is this reveal going to be? What exactly is it going to say? So, I have relatively low expectations. I don't think he's going to give up all the info, right? I don't think he knows everything. I don't think he knows enough. I don't think there's going to be anything super earth-shattering. It's just going to be very interesting, whatever it is. It'll be some more context, some more clues, probably raise some more questions we didn't even think to ask before. But I have low expectations, but so it's not that I'm like, oh my God, we're going to get some great information. This is a cheesy way to do a stall. It's a cheesy way, especially when you're stalling for the entire episode. I thought they were stalling till the end of the episode so he could give a couple of lines. It's like, oh my God, this is what we're going to be talking about. Now wait, next week. They didn't even do that. It didn't seem like we'd gone more than 3 or 4 minutes. We've still got 6 minutes to go. That could be 2 more episodes. So it's just cheesy. That's basically the bottom line. But yeah, so I'll skip the stalling and we'll go to whatever the next thing is. Yeah, this right here, by the way, because it was this kind of a shot, they're wearing different clothes, I just didn't realize who they were. That's the dad, and he's looking great, and Rebecca's looking great. And the thing was, didn't we leave it off where she didn't want to fight? Is that what it was? Remember that? Didn't she decide she didn't want to fight? Or did she decide she did want to finally fight at the very end of the story arc? I can't remember the very last story beat of her arc. I know all along she wanted to fight, she didn't want to fight, she wanted to fight. She was like, that was the conflict. Does she want to be a fighter or not? I thought they left it off. She didn't want to be a fighter, so she was going to go into public service, like, help the government. Whoever it was, I think her sister ended up ruling, right? Help her sister rule or something. But now that here she's training, so I can't remember. If anybody remembers, refresh my memory. What was the very last story beat? I remember the conflict. I don't remember the resolution. But the fact that I'm confused that she's training makes me think the resolution was she did not want to fight. But anyway, yeah, it was great to see him again. For a lot of people, it's probably been several years, right? If you're watching this week to week. This is a particularly maniacal look from Luffy. Yeah, we'll talk about his journey in this episode. There was a lot going on there. These two think they're upset now. Wait till they see the ship sliding past and then off the edge of the lab phase. Yeah, they don't even know that yet. They don't know what's happening there yet. I also like the fact that everybody was so confused that they thought it was live, which makes sense. Why would you think it's a recording? Somebody figured it out. But I don't think you would just automatically assume it's a recording, so it does make sense. What the hell are they doing, right? This is a common trope in this series. Looks like something is about to begin, they say excitedly. Luffy's like this all the time, where it's like, hey, something interesting's happening over there. There's something going on over there. There's We don't know what it is, but something exciting's happened. Let's go check it out. Is one of the underlying timbers of the architecture of this series. It's just, hey, something's going to happen over that hill. Let's go over the hill and look. Who is the most intimidating member of the elders? Who did you, before I talk about what I think, there's five of them. They each have a distinctive look. Who do you find the most intimidating? Just, I mean, we're just talking here. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I think they're all scary. I think they could all kill you very easily. Even now, especially, we know they can transform and they have powers and all this other crap, right? This guy seems like death warmed over. He seems like a strong breeze will blow him over, so he doesn't intimidate me. This is a little confusing. This could be a translation thing. Okay, he says, what happened to Vegapunk? Light Boy killed him. He should be dead. I think. That's three separate statements, meaning three different things. Light Boy killed him, definitive. Okay. All right. So anyway, what do we want to have for dinner tonight? Light Boy killed him. The conversation's over. So what do you want to have for dinner tonight? Then he should be dead is not as definitive as Light Boy killed him. He should be dead. Well, he should be dead. Okay. Well, I don't know. Should we make sure? He's kind of old. Guess should be dead's fine. Let's just move on. And then there's I think. That's the weakest. He gets progressively weaker as we go. Three statements, each one weaker than the last as far as confidence in what you're saying. So I just think that's interesting. And then he follows that up with the fourth statement, I saw it. That's definitive again. Light Boy killed him, I saw it. Okay, so anyway, you want mashed potatoes? He should be dead. I saw it. Well, you did see that he should be dead, so then you're fairly confident, probably not coming back. I think is a direct contradiction to I saw it. So he doesn't know what the hell's going on, and plus he's currently have his head in a Luffy lock, so maybe that's distracting him. Then there's these two, Gorbachev and the Asian representative. He's the one that scares me the most. The sword, of course, is intimidating. I'd love to see him fight Zoro, but also he seems like a very serious dude. He's the only one who has a weapon at any of these meetings. He always has it with him. It's probably a very special sword. Might be the most special sword in the world for all we know. It would be like the author to just, from episode 150 on, continuously show these people, continuously show him with the sword, and turns out that sword is like the baddest, fastest sword in the universe, right? That would be very much like it's been right there in front of our face the whole time. So he's the one I find the most intimidating. And then there's this guy. He seems like French, maybe. European, colonizer type. Fairly intimidating. If I was to rank him in the levels of intimidation, I would have put Sword Guy first, this guy's second, Saturn third, Gorbachev fourth, and then, Strong Breeze will blow you over fifth. So that's how I'd rank him. It cannot be anywhere else but the lab phase on Egghead. Do we know that for sure? Wouldn't Vegapunk be smart enough to put it somewhere else? All we saw was electronics light up, a room light up. Wouldn't it be like him to take some old laboratory, maybe even the one Frankie was at, maybe his original one, and make that the place? I assume he can send signals across the world. Like he's doing it right now, actually. So he could send a signal to his first factory or first laboratory or whatever, some secret location. It could even be a satellite for all we know. They don't seem to be putting things in space, but Vegapunk could for sure. So we just see a room with electronics. We have no frame of reference. We don't know where it is. I assumed it's the lab phase. They assume it's the lab phase. So since we both assume the same thing, it's probably wrong, right? So it probably is somewhere else. Interesting. It'd be somewhere secure. He would probably assume if he's dead, what if the island had been destroyed by the light from above, right? Boom. They could have just done that and it had been wiped out and no transmission. I don't think Vegapunk will put the transmitter in the same location he spends all his time. You gotta hedge your bets. I think it's somewhere else. Especially when it's like, it cannot be anywhere else. Like, you're saying that shit so definitively, you're wrong. Like, typically that's how that works. So that's my prediction. Here's a question. Why do they care so much what people think about why do they care about the PR? They clearly do. they clearly care a lot about PR. Why do they care? I wonder this sometimes even about governments. You know, the current modern day governments, I'm not talking about like back in the days with the guillotines, like then public opinion mattered. Now, like, you know, the whole thing about the Constitution with the Second Amendment, and you have a right to bear arms, and the purpose of that was you could bear arms against the government if the government becomes tyrannical, which is the reason why America was created in the first place, which was they didn't want to be ruled by an authoritarian, tyrannical government, you know, England. So they had weapons, and they used them against England and got their independence. And so the founders of the United States was like, hey, let's put in a thing in the Constitution where people can do that in the future if our government turns to shit, right? So they put in the thing where you can have your muskets. And the government's not allowed to force you to not have muskets, right? Well, spin ahead 250 years. Technology has reached a point where it's impossible for the people to rebel and overtake the government. It is impossible. It might be possible in some third world country somewhere. I think it's happened a couple times in the last 50 years, right? Where the people have rose up and overthrown their government in like Africa or South America or something. It cannot happen in a first world modern day country because they have the military. They have the police. If the police ain't enough, they have the National Guard. If the National Guard ain't enough, they have the military. If the military ain't enough, they got, you know, lasers from space or whatever. Like, the level of technology, like we, the people, we can have guns in our house all we want to. We can't field a tank. We can't field an Apache helicopter. An Apache helicopter can take out 2,000 people in the field in one helicopter can take out 2,000 people charging across the field. So, say a bunch of people show up in D.C. and they're storming the White House. One Apache helicopter flying above the White House can take out all of them. One. We, the people, don't have any Apache helicopters. We don't have drones. They have drone strikes, man. They can strike people from across the world. You think they can't do it in their own house if they have to? Like, the level of technology has reached a point in, 2025 in modern first world countries where it is literally impossible for the people to overthrow the government. There is no chance in hell. They can't do it. I don't care that you have 390 million people in the United States. It don't matter. They can all take the field. And the thing is, they're not all going to, right? You're not going to have 300 million people. I guess 300 million people can overwhelm the military. But it's never going to happen, right? You can't do it. You can't, you could do it 250 years ago. The Americans did it. The colonists in North America did it. They overthrew a government. You can't do it now. The technology gap is so large. They've got billion-dollar tanks and billion-dollar bombers and billion-dollar helicopters and drones. It's impossible. So, that being the case, who gives a shit what the people think, right? You can just do whatever the hell you want. And so, they typically don't. Governments, like you look at America and Canada and France, and, well, France is probably a little skittish. You talk about our revolution here in the United States. The French Revolution was terrifying. Heads were literally rolling. And when they protest these days, they still drag the guillotines down the street, man. They know the power of the guillotine. That is one scary-ass device. I don't care if you have drones. Guillotines are more scary. But France, Germany, hell, even Russia, I mean, everything's gone to shit in Russia. Even there, the people can't rise up and take over the government. Because of technology. You got the tanks, and all that shit. So, why do they give a shit about public opinion? You can just do whatever the hell you want. You have the power. As a government, you have the power. You have the military backing you, and the people can't do jack shit. They can't do nothing against the military. So, why do you care? You can care about the next election. You'll get voted out. But, like, if a president's in a second term, and you don't have to worry about being reelected, why do you care about public opinion? And they all seem to, no matter how bad the presidents are, or however bad they've gotten, they still seem to care about some elements of public opinion. All of them. Nixon, the worst ones ever. They seem to care about public opinion. Even probably in Nixon's time. We had the military. I know we were getting our ass kicked in Vietnam. We didn't have drones yet. But the helicopters, I think, are the biggest difference maker. I keep talking about the Apache helicopters. I talked about that's why the zombie apocalypse could never happen. Because the Walking Dead could never happen. One Apache helicopter would wipe out an entire horde of thousands of zombies. And the only way they can overwhelm you if there's a ton of them. But they don't have the intelligence to strategize. We should stay undercover because this helicopter can take us out. They're going to be right out in the open. There's going to be 1,000 of them walking down the street, and the helicopter just take them all out. One strike, one strafing run, and all the zombies are dead. They can never take over because of that military advantage. If we can't take over with intelligence and knowing the helicopters and knowing how to try to get around the helicopters, the zombies don't have that knowledge. They sure as hell can't do it. It would never happen. But I think even in the 70s, the helicopters would be enough. You could not overthrow the government with violence in the 70s, I don't think. So Nixon didn't have to leave office if he didn't want to. You know, he had some of his own people pressuring and whatever, but it's interesting. I think it goes back to like some things they talked about in Game of Thrones. Power resides where people think it resides. And people think the power resides in the people, and it doesn't. The masses. Public opinion. If the poll's down to 5%, only 5% of people like you. The perception is that matters. So you have to leave office. I think Nixon got down to like in the 20s or something. You have to leave. Oh, you're in the 20s, only 20% of people like you. You have to leave. I think that's a myth. I think it's a mirage. So, bringing this back to One Piece. Why in the hell do these people care about public opinion? Why do they care what people know? I've said I think the Void Century can, the knowledge that you would get from the Void Century, whatever it is the government did back then, and it's possible Black Hoodie was alive back then, so he'd be held personally responsible. It's possible even the elders were. They could be held personally responsible. Why do they care? They have all the power. Now, you could say like, Shanks is scary. You could take out Shanks, but then the other three emperors would take you out, right? That's what I've been told. Like the military has enough to handle one emperor, maybe two. But you mean to tell me if Black Hoodie and the five elders just roll up on Shanks, he can stop him? Him and his lieutenants can stop him. Like, say they know where he is. Hell, didn't he come to see them one time? He came to see him one time. They if they'd wanted to, they could have killed him right then and there. Clearly, he's working with them. He has some kind of sway over them, so they're cool. So they see him as a useful idiot, probably. But they could take him out if they want to, right? I think they have the power. They have the power to destroy an entire island from the sky. They have these scary ass admirals. They have all the Navy, military. Less now, but they have a lot. But most importantly, they have the five elders and Black Hoodie, who are really, really powerful. Why do they care about public opinion? This, I think, is a crucial question. They do. They clearly do care about. Now, is it because it's a myth? Is it what I was saying before? Do they just believe perceptionally that the power of the people is greater than their power? Or, in this world, in this universe, what people think can manifest. So, maybe the fact that everybody's scared of them gives them power in this universe with this magic system. So, what if people are less scared of them and more angry at them, they get their power reduced? What if it's like the Sandman universe where gods get power from followers and from belief? What if everybody gets mad at them? Would they have reduced power? I wonder about that. Because the question is, why do they care about public opinion so much? They clearly do. There has to be a reason. I think the author has thought it all out, and this is being presented to us very specifically. It's an interesting question. I think it's the power of belief, which is becoming more and more obvious as the story goes along. That is an important thing in this universe. That's why I think it's happening. This is a clever little joke. We have 9.5 minutes. What should I do? Invent something? This man is so smart he can invent something in 9.5 minutes. Kiss my ass. Like I said, as you can see, typically with other episodes, when you see a text box there, like in the upper right, there'll be a translation. But I downloaded this the same day it came out, and there is no translation. It's only been 24 hours. I'm going to check back later this week and see if these have been translated, because they're location names. It'll be just, some of these I don't recognize, but if I probably would recognize the name. So, that was I was a little bit hamstrung there. I love this idea that the idea of taking hostages is cowardly. It is, but I don't think everybody necessarily is on board with that. She is. Taking hostages is a very cowardly thing to do. Canonically, what has it been? About a month since they left Dressrosa? 2 months, maybe? Wano took a while. They left Dressrosa. Was Whole Cake Island after Dressrosa? So we're talking about Whole Cake, because Sanji left from here, didn't he? He left from here and went to his family, I believe. Yeah, so it's probably been about 2 months, I think, because there was some stuff. They had spent some time setting up Wano, like infiltrating and getting jobs and shit. So that wasn't just like a 1 week thing. Yeah, so it's probably been a couple months, I think. This is an interesting thing. I think I was talking about her with her whole Luffy thing. I didn't catch this line. It seems Dr. Vegapunk has broadcasted of his own free will. Yeah, so he's not being taken hostage. I think we've decided that. Look at Big Boy back there in the background to the right. He was one of the gladiators, was he? Or this one. Where the hell is this? There's windmills, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. You got the wind coming off the ocean, get power, or whatever. Turn your granary, Usually windmills were used to crush grain, shit like that, because they didn't have electricity back then. So that's a lot of windmills. Here at the coast, in the city, you see windmills out away from the city because that's where the farmers were. They would take the grain and put them in the windmill and get them crushed, right? And other thing, they would do other stuff. But basically they grind up the grain into flour, right? Would be one of the primary purposes of a windmill back then. And then people later got the idea of getting power, Anyway, where the hell is this? And who the hell are these people? I've never seen them before in my life. Like, they're acting like we're supposed to know who this girl is. I have no idea. I don't know. Do we know who these two people are? She seems familiar, and so does this other guy. Is this Water 7? These are Water 7 people? Like the mayor or whatever there was, the guy that was in charge of Water 7. I think maybe, possibly. But who the hell would she be? She was one of the people Luffy saved, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But she's very efficient. I also set up screens at each shipbuilding block. Yeah, shipbuilding dock. This must be Water 7, and this is the mayor. Okay. Gotcha. Did it look like Water 7, though? It actually did. Yeah, this is... Okay, I didn't get a good look at this before. This is definitely Water 7. They got the fountain and all that shit. Okay. Now, since Water 7, that's been over 2 years, right? Because we had the time skip. So they're definitely rebuilt. He called her Alice, whoever the hell that is. Yeah, she called him president, so he must be the guy that was in charge and almost died and shit. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think I have a working knowledge of whoever the hell this is. A faint idea, anyway. I love the little things, right? She touches her glasses and there's a gold star next to her. Yeah, I know it's a glint of light, but, gold star. I still don't remember the mouse on the head. I don't know why that's there. Is this Chopper's Island? They seem cold. I think it's Chopper's Island. Then we got this place. No effing idea where the hell this is. So here we go with Luffy. He can't damage him. At least not enough. So what do you do then? I liked what I thought he was doing. Was you just throw him to the other side of the world? But apparently he threw him in a boomerang fashion, so he came right back. So that's not very helpful. Other than that, I don't know what you would do, man. Throw him in a volcano, I guess, like he did with Big Mom and Kato. This, as I said during the reaction, is one of the most epic things I've ever seen in the entire series. You got clapped. And even that didn't hurt him. Not really. Well, it hurt, Light Boy. But it did hurt Saturn. So, how do you take out somebody like Saturn and the other four elders? I don't think Black Hoodie's coming, thank God. But I don't know how you take him out. You can clearly push him around. You can hit him, you can knock him down, you can maybe even knock him out, but you can't kill him. Here's the thing, though. He seems like he's trying to kill him. You talking about they won't take any damage, but I think he's just trying to hurt him so they stop fighting. He just wants to fight you until you stop fighting, and he's done. And he's frustrated that did not transpire this time. If you regenerate, no matter what I do, fly to the end of the world. So this is what I thought he did. But they came right back. So was that Saturn coming back? Does he have some kind of propulsion power or something to bring him back to where he was? Because Luffy's doing this dialogue confirms it. He was trying to throw them away and get them out of here. And it did work. At least in Saturn's case. Also, I meant to mention this during the reaction when things were kind of moving fast. He clearly turned them to rubber because he has the power to do that, right? Just like Bonnie can change the age of other people or herself. Well, he has the power to turn other people rubber, so he turned them to rubber and he basically flattened them out and then threw them at like frisbees. But somehow Saturn became a boomerang. Also, like apparently if he does this, he can see better. Like I think that's an illusion. People do this sometimes. Basically, all you're doing is you're blocking the sun from your eyes. Other than that, I don't know you're having any effect. Of course, it's convenient that Light Boy lands in a ship, not in the ocean, because I think if he landed in the ocean, he would have just died. Light power or not, he's been beat the hell up today. So I don't think he had enough strength left to get out of the water. So he's lucky he landed in a boat. Even though it wasn't lucky for them. They're not having a good time with him landing there. It's interesting. I talked about was this his doing? They seem to be implying it was. Because first they show him flying like this, okay? Then they show him taking form in the frisbee, like basically reestablishing some control over his own body. Then they show his eyes. Now watch this. They show his eyes, but then they show some kind of determination come to his eyes. Then, at that point, this happens. And he starts going back the other way. So, yes. Through the visual language that I'm picking up on, he reestablished control of himself and started coming back of his own power. So, that's what happened. I was wondering. I didn't think that's what Luffy intended. And it's not. So he started coming back in his own power. Okay. Wonder how you show that with static images. Because in the manga, they had to somehow show this. How do you do that when you can't show any movement? Maybe with a little bit of dialogue. I'm not sure. This is probably a page straight out of the manga. He wasn't expecting Saturn to come back. So yeah, Saturn has the ability to some control over himself while flying, right? So, yeah, this came back around on you pretty fast, didn't it, buddy? Yeah, this is a question. How come nothing I do damages him? You need to find a new way to attack him, right? Some new thing. Probably with hockey. Now, he could be just using hockey, and we're not seeing it. Because usually we see, black, Maybe he's not using hockey anymore because the Joy Boy power is just stronger. Maybe you go back to that. I'm not sure. But at this point, he doesn't seem to want to fight anymore. It's like, well, if I can't damage you, I don't want to fight. So now he's just running away, which we don't typically see. I think we've only seen it a few times where he runs away from a fight. He doesn't want to fight anymore. That's very unusual for Luffy. Then we got this man laid out, man. They may be setting up his death. He might be dying soon. They got him laid the F out. But it's not just physically. He's also having post-traumatic syndrome for, killing Vegapunk. So I think he's also emotionally spent. Physically and emotionally, he is beaten up. And that's what this seems to be telling us. So he's done. I don't think he's going to fight anymore today. It's possible he'll even die. But either way, I think he's done for the day. Then, they're like, we give up this. You need to bring us in here so we can take out the transmission. We ain't got time to be chasing Joy Boy around, right? We cannot let Vegapunk speak freely. So you gotta let Luffy go. Focus your attention on bringing them here. And it has to be a summoning. It's like they can't just teleport. Now, he teleported from the ship to the island. Maybe his power is teleporting. Some fashion, right? but seems like he has to summon them. They can't just come here. So that's interesting. Also, again, more fear of what the public will think, fear of people finding out. What are they afraid of? Does anybody know what this writing is? Is this just gibberish, or is this an actual language, human language, like Arabic, or I don't know, Sanskrit, or I don't think it's Japanese. It doesn't look like it. But let me know. Does anybody know? Is this an actual language, or like Futurama? Is this a language you can decode? Like it's because Futurama created an alien language out of completely new symbols. People could decode it, and they just had one clue, which was drink slurm in English. Early in the episode, and it was a poster with a can of slurm. It's like a soda, right? Later in the episode, they had the same poster, but it was written in the alien language. Drink slurm. So you knew those 5 characters meant drink, and these 5 characters meant slurm. And so using that, they were able to decode the entire language. Because there was all these other signs and posters and stuff that had the alien language written on it. You're able to take, you knew what 5 or 10 of the letters were. And fans were able to take that information and decode all of the languages throughout the course of the entire series. They expected it to take several seasons for people to do this. People had done it by episode 3. They had the clues and everything in episode 1. By episode 3, people were translating the language and putting it online. The fans were really good. So that's the question. Is this something that can be decoded or not? Does anybody know? And there it is. The elders have been summoned. Will they have time to stop the transmission? I hope not, because I want to know what the hell is going to be said. But we'll find out. Can't wait.